afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this webinar about protein, all things protein. I think this is going to be a really helpful one. I've sort of seen the running theme from working one-to-one clients and working with you guys that people are struggling to hit that daily target that I want you guys to hit. And even just getting like 100 grams can be quite tricky for some people. And that's completely normal when you think that if you've never tracked this as a macronutrient and it's not really been on the forefront of your brain and all of a sudden you're told to track it, it can be really overwhelming to try get this into your daily eating style. So what I want to do is go through the reasons why I'm banging on about protein. Like, I'm not just saying it for banter. A little bit about the science behind it, because I do believe that when you understand why we want protein and the science behind why, it makes it a lot easier to be able to implement it into your life. And then also I'm going to give you my practical tips on how to get protein, which also explains people that follow a vegan or plant-based diet and vegetarians as well, and for the omnivores on how you can get protein in. And as we know, it's a lot easier to get your protein in when you are animal-based, but also that doesn't mean that you can't get it as a vegan or a plant-based diet. You've just got to be a bit more tactical, but we'll go through all of that in back towards the end of the slideshow. So what is protein? Now, this, people are probably going to go back to school and it's going to remind you of the school days. So this is basically a chain of amino acids. So protein is a macronutrient, as you are probably well aware now, because you guys are educated on macronutrient and dieting and flexible dieting and all of that jazz. And protein is made up of little things called amino acids. Now, depending on what it is going to make, will depend on the chain of amino acids. So there is 20 amino acids out there, 9 of them being essential, so we need 9 of them. We can't make them ourselves. And the idea is that you kind of like think like Lego bricks and what you're trying to make, you know, back in the days, or like stickle bricks, whatever. If you're trying to make a house, you'd make different combinations. And that is very similar to, well, that is basically a good example of what like protein is. So say you wanted to make hair, it would have a certain chain of amino acid. Say you wanted to make a hormone, it would have a different chain of amino acid. And that's why, that's why we call protein the building blocks. So I've said like treat amino acids like building blocks, things like muscles, hormones, hair. Everything you see will be made up of protein. So hopefully you now can already understand why protein in our diet is so important. As I said, there is 20 amino acids and 9 of them, they're essential. We cannot make them ourselves. This is why people love EAAs and BAAs. It's why people in the fitness industry bang on about it. Being completely honest, this is a complete waste of your money. Because if you were eating a varied diet and paying attention to your protein, you will not need your EAAs and BAAs, and it's just a marketing scandal. I think some people argue it might give you that 1% increase. There's some research that says if you're sipping EAAs during your workout, you can sort of get the benefits of getting your chain of amino acids, or not necessarily a chain of amino acids, but you're getting amino acids into your body during your workout, which can help with the repair. But that's like a 1%. And the thing is that you're not bodybuilders. You don't need that 1%. You just need to look at your diet as a whole. So I would always say that if you are like umming and erring, don't bother. I have EAAs because I bought them and they taste nice. That's literally the only reason why I have it. So I sip it during my pre-workout. Is the only reason. But just a little fact that if you are drinking these, you have to be aware that there will be calories in it. The way that the manufacturers work is that they don't actually have to say that there's calories in it, because it's not technically a nutrient, because it's broken down. It's a broken down macronutrient, but you will have to assume that 1 gram will have 4 calories in it because it is a protein. So you can argue that 1 serving will be about 10 to 20 calories depending on how much you're having. So it's just being aware of that. So animal protein, as we know, has the 9 amino acids, and plant-based you need to combine a mixture of the foods. So we'll dive a little bit more into that when we go into the implications of like plant-based diets. But basically you can know that if you are following an animal-based diet and you are getting enough protein, you are going to be getting all your 9 essential amino acids. You don't need to worry about that again, which is why you don't really need to supplement that. But this is also noting that it doesn't mean that if you're a vegan, you should supplement this either, because if you are getting a variety of protein in your diet, you won't need to supplement it with this. So the basics. We know, the literature varies. Some people say 1.6 to 2.4. Some people even go down up to 3. We know that if you eat 1.4 to 2.4, that is going to be a good baseline. The higher end if you're looking for fat loss, because we know that when you are in a calorie deficit, your body is going to be trying to target fat-free mass, but it doesn't know what to target. So it will know it will basically just take anything. That's why I don't like using it with a phrase like skinny fat, is if you go for a rapid fat loss quite quickly, you're going to get quite a lot of loose skin. You're going to get like that saggy appearance because you haven't built muscle, and then you've also lost muscle as well. So that's why we want to have a high protein diet when we're aiming for fat loss, to stop that from happening. Pair it with resistant training and you're going to get that really toned physique that most people are looking for. In my opinion, based on health, recovery, if anyone who is active, and that could even just be like walking, you should be aiming for 100 grams every day. 1.6 to 2 appears to be the optimal amount, so that's per kilogram. So, but I just think, you know what, to keep it nice and simple, 100 grams per day, that is what I aim for. Now, some days I might only get 80, particularly if I'm like going out for a meal and I prioritized it, but I will make a conscious effort to get 100 grams in per day, and that will get easier with time. So just a little bit of my coaching method, I will base protein targets on someone's calorie deficit. So, but I want everyone eating at least 100 grams per day. What I mean by that is someone that is on like 1400 calories, telling them to eat 140 grams of protein is going to be not really, even though it might be, that might meet that, it might be 2 grams, which we'd recommend, it's going to be really difficult to actually implement that to your life. So I like looking at things in like percentages. If you remember going back down to the macronutrients and where we were doing it all about the percentages of macros, that is sort of what I'm going for. But to be honest, it's really what you can implement in your life. That's why I always say 100 grams is a really good baseline. And we'll dive more into like, what if, you know, I've had some clients that are like, look, I cannot get more than 50 grams, like help me. And of course, I'm not going to ask someone to go from 1 to 100 in like the space of a week. So I will give you practical tips on what you can do. If someone is like, I've got a one-to-one client and they want to say 100 grams of protein, and it's been a couple of weeks now that they're really like saying to me, like, I'm really hungry, I'm just hungry between my meals, what do I do? I naturally would tell them to increase their protein, because we know it's a really satiating macronutrient, it keeps you fuller for longer. So it could just be that they respond better to higher protein. I know that I'm a responder to protein. Like when I'm dieting, I try aim for at least 120 grams per day, give or take. You know, on the weekends it might be a little bit less, just so I'm a bit more flexible, but I will try aim for 120, and I find that is my optimal range. No matter what my calories are, that's my optimal range to stay full. But some people are different, so this is why like one-to-one coaching is quite helpful, because it's going to be different for everyone, and it's just kind of like tweaking the path depending on what they need. So protein, it's important for fat loss. We know it keeps us full. It's the best macronutrient along with fiber for society. And what we mean by that is actually not just keeping us full, but actually keeping us like happy with our meal. As you know from previous webinars, we need to eat a certain amount of food. Now, if you think that one gram of protein is 4 calories, so, and compared to like fat, that's 9 grams. So it just means you can eat more food. If you're prioritizing fat in your diet, which again there's nothing wrong with, but you've got to be aware of this. If you're prioritizing fat in your diet, you're going to get less food, you're going to see less of it, you're going to eat less, you're going to have less bites, your body is going to have like that mental, like, there's not much food on my plate, your belly's not going to be as full. So that's why, like, it's all with carbohydrates as well, and particularly fiber. Having a high protein diet, which means you can eat a little bit more. The protein is the building block for everything that's built, and it also aids for growth and repair and recovery. So it really helps support recovery. This is why like bodybuilders, they will, when they're in prep, so when they're like about to jump on stage, they will have a ridiculous amount of protein in their diet, because they need to recover. They're still training really bloody hard. They need to make sure they're recovering. So along with other things, they will make sure that their protein is really high. It also as I've mentioned before, it also helps prevent muscle tissue breakdown. So basically, this is really important when we're in fat loss, because as you know, when you're in a deficit, small, medium or large, more prominent when you're in a large deficit, but when you are losing body fat in a calorie deficit, your body won't know whether to take the mass from fat-free mass or your lean tissue. And lean tissue is things like your muscle, your liver, all your organs. It's not just your muscle. So it will just take things from wherever it wants to go. If you are resistant training, so you're telling the muscle that you still need to use it, basically you're active and you are eating protein, your body will know to keep repairing it. And then I don't know the stats on the studies, but Bill Campbell has done a really interesting study on this, and basically it's very much recognised that if you are eating a high protein diet with resistant training, the fat-free mass that you will lose is like basically all of it. You will lose pretty much all of it, and you will lose very little lean tissue. You'll lose an element of it, but it's reduced by a huge amount. I think it was like something like 90% or something ridiculous like that. So why we like it for building muscle and getting in shape. So this is a really important one, because a lot of people will come to me with like a fat loss goal, but they'll also say that they want to get toned, they want to get into shape. It is needed for building muscle. You know that protein is a building block. So as you can imagine, you're building muscle, you're going to need your protein. The process of building muscle, so this is a little bit of the science side. It's not as extreme as it could be. Like, you could literally break this down into like the molecular level, and it's like mind blowing. So all you need to know is that you need to create a stimulus on the muscle. So basically, you need to tell the muscle that you're doing something, and it's normally something you're not used to doing. This is why we call it like plateauing. So for example, if you're, I mean, I'm going into it and I will explain it a little bit more in the resistance training one, but if you're doing like a home workout, your body will get used to that stimulus quite quickly. You know, for the first sort of month, 2 months, what you're doing is enough. But when your body gets used to it, it won't be classed as stimulus because your body has then adapted to it. So, but the idea is you need to create a stimulus. Why we want to get stronger and better every time. So the idea is you create a stimulus. You then told your body, oh, this is happening, and it tears the muscle. This is known as muscle breakdown. When you recover, and this is really important, is, you know, the cliche one that your muscles are not built in the gym, they're built at home, and it's so true. When you are recovering, so that is sleeping, effectively sleeping, that's when the muscle growth will happen. Because what happens is that the amino acids that we're eating, yum yum yum, they are the building blocks. So your muscles are broken, they're torn, they need repaired, and they're basically kind of like, imagine like building a house. They'll get slapped on, then you'll get new muscle built. And the idea is that your body has then thought, holy shit, that was hard. I need to make sure that I can do that better. That was hard. I broke my muscle. I don't want to break my muscle again. So then it will come out bigger and better. And that is basically what like building muscle is in a nutshell. Muscle growth to occur, we need muscle protein synthesis. So muscle protein synthesis is the process of building muscle. It needs to be larger than the muscle breakdown. So muscle breakdown is when you tear the fibers. In order to reach muscle protein synthesis in the rate that we're going to build muscle, you need to make sure that this is greater than the muscle breakdown. So there's 2 triggers for muscle protein synthesis to happen, and it's one, exercise, particularly resistant training, so micro tears. You can argue that there's elements of like, running, because if you're running and you're tearing the muscles when you're doing that high endurance, but what tends to happen is that people become quite stimulated to that. Your muscles develop quite quickly, which is why resistant training is always going to be the best way to grow muscle. Nutrition is really important as well. Protein, I won't dive too much into leucine because it's a little bit more like, I find it really interesting, but to be honest, you don't really need to know it. You just need to know to eat a protein. But they do say that 0.4 grams per kilogram per 3 to 6 times of eating leucine is going to be really good to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, because it sort of triggers like that, which we'll dive into in a second. Once the body sees the muscles as stress, once the body sees that the muscles are stressed, so when the micro tears, it will see that muscle protein synthesis will begin. Ideally, you want this to occur as many times as possible throughout the day. You don't just want muscle protein synthesis to happen once a day. That's not going to be optimal. So when people have like one big meal, this is why intermittent fasting isn't most optimal for muscle protein synthesis. It's not most optimal if you want to grow muscle, if you want to get toned, because the thing is, if you're fasting, you're only having 1, maybe 2 meals a day, and then you're just going to go like that. The idea is this is why bodybuilders will eat like 6 meals a day, because they want the muscle protein synthesis to go like that. So rest, and again with this is important, rest is just as important, because when you are building muscle, you are doing that when you're at rest. So that's why I always say sleep is just as important as hitting your protein goals. Oh, you can't really see it. It says practical terms. It says practical terms for muscle protein synthesis. So, yes, technically, I'm going to move myself over here. Technically, leucine is a type. So there is a type of amino acid. Actually, I'm not going to move myself here because then I'm like looking over there, because I'm very vain and I like to look at myself. Anyway, there we go. So, a type of amino acid is called leucine. There's 9 essential ones, and that is one of them. Your body needs a serving of ideally 0.4 grams to kilograms 3 to 6 times a day. That is why, as I said, the bodybuilders are like, I gotta have it 6 times a day. I personally would not get too hung up on leucine. I think I've done a slide on where you can get leucine from, but basically most animal products will have it, and also like plant-based products will have it as well. You're better off just really accepting that you need to have 20 to 25 grams of any protein is accepted, really. So any protein type, 20 to 25 grams to stimulate muscle protein synthesis 3 to 6 times a day. I always say you need 3, and this also really optimizes your fat loss goals, because you want to be eating 3 times a day. People that eat twice a day, from personal experience from one-to-one clients, they don't get the best results, because they're constantly in this state of hunger, and then they end up overeating. And also from a recovery point of view, the body's like this. not to say that 2 times a day doesn't work for everyone, but for most people, 3 times a day is really optimal. If you are really, really into the muscle building, and I would say this is more for people that are at maintenance or even looking for a surplus, 6 times a day is really optimal. I always say 3 to 4 times per day is you're good. It is accepted that ideal consumption of protein is every 3 to 5 hours, and it just so happens that is what the research says for not getting super hungry, staying satisfied. So we recommend that you eat every 3 to 5 hours. So they really complement each other as well. If you know that you are eating plant-based, you know that it's not going to be as optimal. You know that it's harder to get your proteins in because you need to combine things. You need to combine different types of protein in order to get the full range of amino acids. So I always say aim for 30 grams if you are plant-based, because this is going to be more optimal for muscle growth. It is accepted that no more than 40 grams can be used for muscle protein synthesis. So you've probably seen this if you're into the scene of like people are like, there's no point in eating 40 grams because it's just going to be used by the body. Some people even go like, it's going to be used for fat. And no, not true. You got to remember as well, like, we need protein for other functions. We don't just need it for building muscle. We need it for hormone growth. We need it for just like growing our hair. Like, we need it for so many different other reasons than just muscle growth. So if your meal does have more than 40 grams of protein, it's fine. Like, eat it. Like, sometimes my dinners are like 50, 60 grams. If I go to Nando's, I'm eating like 60 grams of protein in one sitting. So it's absolutely fine. So don't panic if you ever see anyone saying that. Just block them because they're stupid. The optimal, as I've said, is to aim for 3 to 4 servings of 25 to 30 grams per day. With some meals, I will accept 20 grams. Like, there will always be, like, I always say, if you're having 4 meals per day, and one of them is 20 grams, I will accept that. I will accept one meal being 20 grams. If you're new to tracking protein and you're getting 3 to 4 20 grams of protein per meal, I will accept that, because that is definitely going to be a step in the right direction. And then if you're one of my one-to-one clients, we can work on tweaking and how we can get that to be more like 25 to 30. 4 is like the most optimal amount, because I think so this is basically how muscle protein works. So this is your meal, and then this is resistance training. So you go up, and then you get the spike of muscle protein synthesis, and then it will go back down, and then it will go back up, and then it will go back down. The more we can get this, the more that we can get this to go up and down, the more time throughout the day you are experiencing muscle protein synthesis, which is going to be really optimal for muscle growth. If you're intermittent fasting, you're only going to get this once. There is a rate, like the 40 grams, there is an element of truth behind, well, it's not an element, it's true with muscle protein synthesis. There's only so much it can absorb. So if you're having like one meal and you're having like 100 grams of protein, it's going to like spike, and then it's going to come back down, but then you're not going to have this nice little curve anymore. So that is why it's a lot more optimal to try aim for 3 to 4 portions of 25 to 30 grams of protein per day. Typically, the eating window for muscle protein synthesis after training is 1 to 3 hours. To be honest though, after training, I wouldn't recommend eating I would eat within the first hour to 2 hours of training, just especially if you're in fat loss, just because you get hungry. If you're training hard at the gym, which I would encourage you all to do, especially if muscle growth and toning is your goal, then you probably are going to find that within an hour it hits you. For me, I always get home and I am ravenous. I am so hungry, which is why I try to plan my meals so that I eat and train about 2 hours after I've eaten, and then I can get a nice meal in afterwards. Otherwise, I am starving. So this is an interesting fact for people that are older. So if you're an older client or an older person, yes, it is technically true that it can be harder to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, and it can be harder to build muscle, maybe. Many reasons, if you're in menopause, then naturally your estrogen drops. If your estrogen drops, then it's harder to build muscle just in that regards. If you're older, you're less active. Like, there's so many different factors. So eating higher protein can be really helpful. It can just sort of counteract that. So if you are an older person, I would highly recommend eating 4 servings of 25 grams per day. And then that will just help counteract it. And I don't want this to be a self-limiting belief. Like, I've had people say, like, when they're just like choosing to work with me or not, they're like, you're asking me to do this, but I won't be able to do this because I'm older. And it's like, no, I've had older people in amazing shape. I've seen older people in amazing shape, and like sometimes the excuses of like, oh, I'm too old to start now. Absolutely not. Even more reason to start. So if you're sort of worrying that your age is a factor on this, then absolutely not. If anything, it's more reason to push harder, and really aiming for that 25 grams per serving 4 times a day is going to be really, really helpful. So just want to touch a little bit on lutein. I sort of explained it briefly on the sense of like you need 0.4 grams per kilogram. So a lot of people recognize it as like 2 to 3 grams per mil every 3 to 5 hours. So if you're a 60 kilo female, you will need 24 grams of lutein. That's why, you know, the whole range of 25 to 30 can be really, really helpful. It's found in most products, like most like protein-based products. As you can see, meat, dairy, and eggs, it's got it. Legumes, so I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. Legumes like beans and lentils. Soy products are really good. If you're a vegan or plant-based, soy products are going to be your best friend. That's things like tofu, tempeh, and soya beans. There's the other one I can't pronounce. Seitan? I can't even pronounce it, but I've had it before. I had it brewed and it's really, really good. I did put it there. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it again. And nuts and seeds, but I really want this to be recognized that like the amount of people that say to me, I'm getting my protein in because I'm having nuts, and it's like, okay, nuts is predominantly fat, healthy fats, but it's predominantly fat. You are getting like 1 gram of protein for like 4 grams of fat that you're having in that nut. So you've got to think like from a leucine level that is not going to be that high. So when people say that they're getting their leucine from nuts, technically it's in it, but you're not getting enough. You're a lot better trying to focus on getting these to get your leucine requirements. But as I said, don't get too hung up on this. I'm just mentioning it for anyone that's interested in it, if you want like a bit more of the advanced stuff. But for the most of you guys watching this video, you're going to be a lot better at hitting your protein, focusing on protein, not the specific elements of protein. So this is the more practical side of this. So one of the things I get is like, I can't hit my protein. I'm trying everything, I just can't hit it. So I'm going to give you some practical tips on what you should do. So I would say I always try the doubling method per week. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your food diary. I want you to go in and have a look at the couple of the days that you are like looking at protein. I want you to go in and have a little look at your diary. So I want you to go in and have a look at your diary and see where the protein is at. So you will set your protein, you can set your like macronutrients to look at like your protein, fats, and carbs. Have a look at the protein. Anything that has over 10 grams of protein for one like thing, so like if you're having like chicken or whatever, I want you to double that amount. So say you have 100 grams of chicken for one meal, and then want you to have 200 grams of chicken. If you're having 1 egg, have 2 eggs. You will watch the protein double on that one. Now, for some people, this isn't helpful because then it just boosts their calories up a lot. So then what I want you to do is I want you to replace it for lean protein. So say you had a sausage and it had 10 grams of protein. I then want you to go on to the next slide and have a look, okay, what can I replace it for? Or even doing your own research and have a little look, oh, okay, you know, I have sausage, maybe I have a reduced fat sausage instead. I could have 2 reduced fat sausages for 1 sausage, as an example. So I always say a practical thing as well is if fats are over 45 grams per day, so if you are finding that you're eating over 45 grams of fat, move the fats from your macros. You know, as much as I say I don't really care about how much fat and protein, how much fat and carbs you're eating, we know that fats take up 9 calories compared to carbs and protein take up 4. So it makes more sense to fill your diet up with more carbs and more protein because you're going to get more food for it. So I always say if this is the case, have a look at your diary, audit your diary and think, oh, okay, I could chuck, you know, and it can be really simple things like, oh, okay, I'm having 20 grams of cheese. I'm going to have 10 now. Or I'm having, you know, the sausage. Okay, I'm going to remove that. And this is why one-to-one coaching is really helpful because I will like literally go through your diaries and say, oh, okay, you can chop this out and chop this out. And it's not, again, I don't want to like make this out like it's restricting. It's not restricting. It's just optimizing. You know, for me today, yesterday I had enchiladas and I was like, I am having the real thing. I'm having real cheese. I was always like the eat lean girl, and like sometimes eat lean is really helpful, but I want the real thing. Now I had a little look and I was like, okay, I still need to hit my protein targets on this. So instead of having 20 grams of cheese like my partner's having, I'm going to have 10 grams. I think I had 12 or something. And it was so good because it was like mature cheddar. You only need a little bit of it. Anyway, I'm going on about cheese. I love cheese. So they're like your practical tips you can do. If you are finding that it's under 45 grams, you could consider, I mean, I personally would still try remove some fats. Like, this is just me and take it as you will because everyone's different. When I'm dieting, I diet on about 30 to 35 grams of fat and I'm on about 1,600 calories. Now, I'm not saying like copy and do what I say, but this just gives you a rough guide of like what works for me. But so, you know, I've got some clients that really thrive off having higher fats. So then if that's the case, then you need to see what carbs you can remove. And it could be something as simple as instead of having 2 slices of toast, you have 1 slice of toast, but then you have an extra egg. So it could be just sort of playing around with that. So these are like some practical implementations. An example of this, I was quite proud when I made this. So I'm not saying that this is optimal, by the way, but it's a start. Cocoa Pops and milk. So you've got it there, you've got 10 grams of protein. So, okay, I'm gonna remove this. If I have 400 grams of milk, like that's like nearly a pint of milk, that's a lot. So, and it's still not gonna give me 20 grams of protein minimum. Okay, I'm going to remove this and I'm going to change it for the lean protein side. Okay, I'm going to change it now for a protein yogurt. So I'm having protein yogurt and Cocoa Pops and I'm getting 23 grams of protein. Great, cool. Bacon sandwich. Okay, so I have the toasted sandwich and then I have 2 bacon rashers. Okay, look at this fat. There's quite a lot of fat in here. Okay, instead I'm going to still have my bread because I really like the thick bread, but I'm going to have the leaner version. So I'm just going to get the bacon medallions. Now, a little tip is that instead of spending loads of money on the bacon medallions, you can literally just buy bacon and just take them off yourself. The advantage of buying the bacon medallions, they're a little bit more spenny, but they're thicker, so they're quite tasty. So that could be a little tip. And then the chicken nuggets, chips and beans, you know, you just need a really quick dinner, like just something really simple. So you've gone for oven chips, baked beans, and then the chicken nuggets, which is giving you 17 grams of protein. For basically the same calories, we have now got 40 grams. Oh no, I went back. We've now got the same calories, over double the protein. And all I've done is I've kept the beans, have your beans, that's fine. I've done 150 grams of boiled potato. So actually you're getting a little bit more potato, but you're just going to make your own. I've still said have your olive oil. That's what you want. Have 5 grams of olive oil. Have 5 mils of olive oil just to sort of put it over it. That's absolutely fine. And just stick them in the air fryer. Bit of paprika, just literally stick them in the air fryer, or just stick them in the oven if you've got the time, 40 to 45 minutes. There we go, done. If you don't, a little tip as well, if you don't have an air fryer and you're not willing to get one, then you can put the potatoes in the microwave. That will soften them up. And then put the olive oil on them and then the paprika, whatever seasoning you want, and then put them in the oven, and it only takes about 30 minutes to get them. I just personally think just buy a bloody air fryer, just buy one. They're literally life-changing. But if you don't want one, that's fine. And then to make your own chicken nuggets, you are going to get 120 grams of chicken breast, which is really not a lot. It's really not a lot. But you'll still get more than this. You'll still get more volume than this. And then you literally coat it in the egg and then coat it in the breadcrumbs and then put them in, again, the air fryer, oven, the grill, whatever you fancy. And then you've got your own homemade chicken nuggets. So there you go. You've literally replicated that meal and now you've got like over double the amount of protein. If you add all of this up, you were getting over 100 grams of protein, and I can't remember the exact calories. I think it worked out like 1,200. So you've still got room. You're hitting your protein goals. You're getting actual meals. I mean, I would recommend having some veggies for this. But then you've got, most users are dieting on over 1,500 calories. You've now got 300 calories to play around with. You can have whatever you want. You can have a chocolate bar. You can add some veggies to your meal. So you can see, like, it is doable. You've just got to, I guess you've just got to have the education, and I think that's the thing as well. There's no point me telling you something if you don't really know how to implement it. So hopefully that was helpful. So some more tips is, so I'm just reading this. I mean, this is my own writing, but I just need to double check what I am saying. So take the time every night to look. Okay, this is a little tip for me, is like, take the time and learn. They say that you learn the best in this first 6 months of calorie counting or macro tracking, however you want to call it. And that is because as long as you're being self-aware. This is why, again, I don't agree with meal plans, because if someone gives you a meal plan, you're just eating what you're told to eat, and you're not really learning the different elements of food that you can have. So, take the time, have a little look, think, oh my god, that had like 5 grams of fat in it. Like, oh, that's, and then this is where it gets a bit more advanced. It's like you work out what's filling you up. Wow, that had 10 grams of fat in it. So my revolutionary thing was back in the days, like 2 years ago when I was dieting, I was really scared to eat fat. So I think I mentioned this before. And I would like eat like 20 grams a day. It wasn't good. And then my coach was like, sort your life out. We need to start getting more fat into your diet. And I had this breakfast and it was like 10 grams of fat, which for me was like unheard of. And I remember being full for like 6 hours. Not that I would recommend not eating for 6 hours, but it just worked out that way. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why am I full? And it was like, my coach was like, it's because you're eating fat. Like, you're actually eating fat in your diet, because fat slows down the digestion of all the other macronutrients. But anyway, this is more about protein, not fat. But what I'm trying to get is like just becoming aware of things, being like, oh, that only had 20 grams of protein. Wow, like, oh wow, oh, that didn't really fill me up. Okay, 30 grams did. And the more you learn about the macro breakdown of food that you're eating, the quicker you can make informed decisions for yourself, rather than just getting someone else to do it for you, rather than just saying influencers saying, oh look, make this spag bowl. You're like, no, I'm making decisions for myself. You might find, okay, the spag bowl meal, this is why I don't really like posting recipes on my Instagram, because what I tend to find is like I'm then making a recipe based on myself, when actually like you should alter it based on you. Like, for example, I might make a loaded fries meal that's got 600 calories in it and it's got like 20 grams of cheese, but someone might not want that. So I always like prefer doing like meal ideas rather than like this is what you should eat. But anyway, change the subject. So then you can make informed decisions. Another tip is to reduce the amount of the 20% fun food. So remember in my last webinar, I explained about the 20-80 concept, where 80% is whole food and 20% is fun food. Well, the reality is that the fun food will tend to be higher in, the palatable fat that we love, and we need to try to reduce that, because chances are it's going over your calories, and because of that you're using the fat for your macros, and then you're not getting enough protein in. So I just say reduce the amount that you're eating. Naturally, if you replace the foods with whole foods, you'll have more volume and it'll be easier to fit protein into your diet. Another tip is to write a list of the lean proteins that you enjoy. So like I will give you a list, and then write them down and then find ways to have these in your daily diet, which I will dive into after in the next couple of slides. Just wanted to like give you this as an example. So as you can see, these are different styles of sausages you can get. So like if you think like the standard sausages that most people will get is 272 calories and it's only 10 grams of protein. For the same, for 100 grams, you can get 218 and 36 grams of protein. I know they're chicken, but they're still resemble sausage. And then, 50% reduced fat is 189 calories. So it's 100, nearly 100 calories less than this, or 80 calories less, and it's got 16 grams of protein in it. You pair this up with some potato or some bread, you're going to get over 20 grams of protein, and you're going to get a meal as well. So this just gives you a bit of retrospective of, the macro breakdowns of different foods. So the reality of protein, to get your protein from lean protein, you will need to I recommend you top it up with secondary protein. So what I mean by this is like, and this is like the fundamentals, so just balancing a plate as well. If you prioritize the meal with protein, so say I had 100 grams of protein of chicken, that's 24 grams. Okay, great. So I've already got that. I'm nearly at 25. If I top it up with some whole grains, I'm at 30 easy. If I have 2 slices of bread with this, I'm at 30 easy. So it does not have to be hard. For vegans, you will need to use secondary proteins for most of your meals. The only meals, so we've got things called first class proteins and second class proteins, which I think I explained in this slide. Oh, it's gone like that. So first class proteins have got all the essential amino acids in them, and some vegan products will as well. So like soy products, which is like tofu, tempeh, soy milk, soy yogurt, they will have first class proteins. So if you eat a lot of this, you won't even need to think about it. Second class proteins, which is nothing wrong, it will only have like say 4 or 5 of the essential amino acids, which is why you need to pair things, which is why like beans on toast is a classic one, because you've got the amino acids from the bread, the amino acids from the beans, bang them together, you've got a complete protein source there. So these will have secondary proteins in them as well. So for vegans, as I said, it is harder, so you just have to pay a little bit more attention, and I will go into the practical implications of this, but I always recommend having at least 1 soy product per day, if not 2, just to make sure that you are getting that. And that kind of does help vegetarian diets as well, because as much as you can eat eggs and yogurt and that, it is still going to be a little bit more trickier than an omnivore who can pretty much eat anything they want. So as I said, it is hard to get protein as a vegetarian or vegan, but with the knowledge and awareness, it is possible. As you were saying before, like just being aware and just spending the time, like this is an education process, right? Have a little look at the things, have a look at the macro breakdowns. Like this is why one of the reasons why I love calorie counting. It's not because I want to be obsessive over it. It's because you get to learn about nutrition, you get to learn about the macronutrients, you get to learn about carbs. I don't know about you, but I find that really, really cool. So this is just, you can pause this if you wanted to have a little look, but that just gives you an idea of everything. So this is like one of my favorite ones to do, because obviously like I am not a vegan, I am an omnivore, but I have vegan friends that help me. I have vegetarian clients. I have one client that's actually just dived into eating less animal protein. So as a coach, I need to be aware of this. So if I was a vegan, this is what I would do. I would have soya-based meal, tofu, tempeh, meat substitutes. Some meat substitutes are really good, like What the Cluck, and this isn't quite good. You will use soya-based products, and I will make sure I have one of these meals once a day. I will then have another meal with like lentils, beans, chickpeas once a day. I will use you could use corn-based instead, but be aware that corn-based meals typically are ultra processed, which I'll dive into in a second. I will then have oats with plant-based protein once a day. So I have like protein powder and oats, whether I have it as a snack, whether I have it as a meal. And then I will have a soy yogurt as part of a meal. So there we go. I will just make sure that I have a variation of these 4 times a day. Then I will top my meals up with whole grains, pastas, bread, buckwheat, couscous. I might even consider having like dairy-free products like the Schlees or something to top it up. I will use things like Beyond Burger sparingly. Like I would maybe have it like on the weekend as like a treat, because the reality is that they're high in calories and they are ultra processed foods. And that's the thing, like I could go on and rant about this. This is why there is a shift in, like, we're recognizing that we want to try eat less animal products, which is fine, that's great, but actually the replacement, in my opinion, is not good. It's not optimal. It's not okay, because it's really high in ultra processed products, which is then fucking, sorry for the language, fucking wrong with microbiome, and it's not giving us that satiety that we need to. And then what is the result? We overeat on them. Or one burger, an animal-based product, might be 200 calories or 150 calories, whatever, and then you're getting like 20 grams of protein. But these Beyond Burgers are like 270 calories, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think that's like a 30% difference, and if you're eating in the same way that you're normally eating, of course you're going to gain body fat, because you're then naturally now eating in surplus. Anyway, I won't go into too much of that. Also, it's worth knowing, considering spinach and broccoli, why do you think I eat spinach every day? Because it's really high in protein. That's why they said, like, who was that guy? Is it Popeye? He was like, eat my spinach because I get strong, and it's because it had really high protein in it, basically. So if I was a vegetarian, I would follow the vegan-based recommendation. So I would follow this. But it would just, it's a little bit easier, because I could have eggs every day. I could top it with egg whites if dieting, just because egg white is where the lean protein comes from. I would have a dairy product once a day, so like Greek yogurt as part of a snack or a meal. And then this is really good as well. This is Eat Lean cheese. It actually does taste like cheese and it melts like cheese, but being completely honest, it doesn't have that, like, I couldn't that bit. It doesn't have that to it, but it does taste like cheese, and it's a really good alternative. And like, it's so, not saying you would have 100 grams of it, but 100 grams is 172 grams of 102 calories and 36 grams of protein. I'm not saying you would even need 100 grams, but you get the gist. It's really good. So on omnivore diet, which is something that I follow, so this is how I eat. And I just follow it based on like what feels good for me, and I will encourage my clients to eat like this too, with obviously tweaks on what works for them best. So I will get three servings of protein, 25 to 35 grams minimum every day, without a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable, I will do this, okay? And I will eat chicken pretty much every day. It's just so versatile. It's one of the cheaper proteins that you can eat. As I said, you can have it in chicken, like wraps, pastas, salads. It's so easy, so versatile. I will then have, at the moment, I've been having my eggs and egg whites and make it into an omelette. So I'll just crack 1 egg and 100 mils egg whites. I will whisk it up and I will have it as an omelette, and I'll add like cheese if I fancy it. Maybe I'll just have it on my own. I've also started scrambling it, so literally whisking it up, like going like that with my whisk and making it really, really frothy. And then I put it in the microwave, and then it just goes really voluminous. And I actually really, really like it. Tuna and white fish is a really good one. I will have lean beef. So basically, I will have all of these, and I will have the. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I will have 3 of these automated throughout the day. So it means that I don't even need to have like the same thing every day. But you'll tend to find as well, like, as I go on about it, if you ask anyone and you really dig down, most people eat between 20 and 30 things of the same thing for the whole life, right? So when people turn around and say, I'm going to get bored of it, it's like, yeah, but if you actually dive down to what you're eating, you are eating the same thing. So that's why I will eat chicken every day, because it just makes it easier. But I will just alternate how I'm having my chicken. So every day I will also eat one form of potato, either jackets, fries, scallops, or mash, and I will have one form of grain, whether like oats, rice, or bread. And if I just make this as my non-negotiable and just find a way, so like if I'm planning out my meals, I'll be like, oh, I haven't had potato today, I'm going to have potato for my dinner. Then it's done. It just takes away the thinking. I know, but I personally find the potatoes just so filling. If I have potato, I'm good to go. That's why when I'm really, really prioritising in a day deficit, I will have pretty much potato and chicken. Is like my life. Why I pretty much will eat these every day, just because it takes away that decision fatigue of having to think about stuff. But also, I know that it fills me up, which is really good for when I'm dieting. So potato, my main meals will be like potato based. So it'll be like loaded fries, jack potatoes, meat, and then some sort of like meat and veg. I'll have like chips and something, because I'm one of those people that will have, like, if you have enchiladas and you put like 2 enchiladas on my plate with some salad, I'll be like, where's my chips? I don't know. I think it's because I grew up with chips as a kid, like the oven chips. So I'm just so used to having that as a meal. So I will always have my air fried chips or something, whether it's a wrap or a burger. Bread as well, like bread. I mean, I don't have to have my chips for like a lunch or something. So I will take like a wrap or a flatbread. I love my pastas, rice bowls. I've put rice bowls twice. It's just how passionate I am about them. And a fry up, mate. A fry up is like the best. Like a breakfast for dinner, oh, love it. So be aware of ultra processed protein. This is more for like your vegetarians and your vegans, but also omnivores, you need to be aware of it as well. Marketing's really good, and actually it's really bloody bad for you. So a really good example of ultra processed plants is like the Beyond Meat and the Corn Foods. Now, I am not saying don't have them in your diet, but just be aware of them. If you're having four portions of corn and like the Beyond Meats every day, and then you're wondering why you're hungry, probably because you have an ultra processed diet. If you're wondering why you can't stay within your calories and hit your protein, probably because you have an ultra processed diet. The reality is that the more whole food you can eat, the easier it's going to be. So getting tofu in its natural form and cooking it yourself is going to be a lot easier and more optimal. I do appreciate though that this is not always optimal. So the brands that I have found is like the What the Cluck, they're really good. Future Tuna is pretty good as well. Obviously anything like tofu and tempeh is quite good, and this isn't products, they're pretty good as well. I would still consider them ultra processed, however they're way better than these sort of products. They're minimal, they've got minimal emulsifiers. Basically ultra processed, this is the big question, but ultra processed is seen as something that's used to modify the flavor or modify the enhancement of it. So like you could argue that bread is processed because obviously we add things to bread to make it last longer, but that would be classed as minimally processed. It's a big dived in question, but just know that most vegan vegetarian products unfortunately are ultra processed, and I completely get it. You're trying to hit your protein goals, trying to hit your calories, it can be really difficult. So I would just say, like, at the moment, if you're completely new to this, just being aware will do a world of good. So like, if you're finding that you're eating like these and you're not staying full for long, try doing something different. If you're having 2 of these a day, try have 1. If you're having 4 of these a day, try have 1. Just being optimal with it and just being aware can make it a lot easier. And then try to switch it out for soy-based products can be really optimal as well. So how to choose your protein. This is like a key tip, is that I always base, so 100 grams of protein is 106 calories and 124 grams of protein. That is like the most leanest meat you can possibly get. So I use this as the ratio guidance. I use this to compare it. I will compare all of these meals to this protein. And if the meals are not hitting that protein, or the product isn't hitting that protein, I will ask why and what the replacement is. Because of course 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of chicken is going to have like no fat, no carbs in it. So obviously this is a very literal version, but it gives you a good idea of like comparing it to. So I always say compare the protein to calorie ratio, and then you work out what's worth it for you. So for example, these Richmond sausages are 264 calories for 10 grams of protein, when I could have 200 grams of chicken, right, for less calories than this and 48 grams of protein. So to me, I would much rather have the chicken, or I might have 1 sausage and breast of chicken. So then again, what I'm trying to say is that being self-aware and just making the choices for yourself. So this just gives you a really good idea of like the different products that you can get and the different macro breakdowns, and just laying it out like this is what I will do quite often as well. So I will lay the things out. I will go on to like the week after on my NutriCheck, and I will just lay things out and get a good idea. And then I will look at other sources of protein and compare them. It may not be as lean as chicken. Like, of course, it's probably not, because chicken is as lean as you can get, but you can get a good idea what's worth it. Like, for example, these Heck burgers, 134 grams of protein and 22 grams of 22 grams of protein, 134 calories. That's pretty good going. So flexible dieting tip is, say I want something and I know it's not the best for protein, it's high in calories, but I know, like, I just want it, okay? So a good example is this Heck burger. It's 205 calories and 19 grams of protein. Okay, I really want it. I know it's not going to be as optimal, because for me to get this meal, I really want this meal, is 500 calories and 28 grams of protein. Then what I need to think about how am I going to get my other meals to hit my protein goals? But my goal is 100 grams, for example. I just need to be more optimal, and this is why pre-planning is so good. So an example could be, okay, so I need to now hit 71 grams of protein, which might sound really scary, but actually if you break that down, that's 35 grams of protein, okay? So I could have, this is my go-to, the fuel, like I could have fuel, an Arla yogurt, and 80 grams of blueberries. There we go, nearly 30 grams of protein. Then I can have chicken, potato, and courgette. Keep it nice and simple. That's 43 grams of protein. That's 1,300 calories. I've got 3 meals in. I'm getting lots of veggies in as well. Now that means I've hit my protein, and now I have 300 calories to have whatever I want. And this is what flexible dieting is all about. Like, it's about getting what you need to get in, but then also having a little bit of room for stuff you want. Like, if I have these meals, I know that I'm going to be full and satisfied for them. And then I've got 300 calories to have whatever I want. Do I want to have my hot chocolate in the evening? Do I want to have my protein snack? Whatever I fancy. So my last practical tip is find the meals you enjoy that are high protein and jot them down. These will be your go-to meals. In my personal opinion, like absolute golden go-to meals is 30 grams of protein for under 450 calories. If you can find those meals, hang on to them because they are gold dust. And then you can fill up until your next meal. Okay. I was like, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, like, these meals are going to fill you up to your next meal, and then the other top tier meals that have 2 portions of veg in them. So if you basically just find your combos that work for you. So my combo is 2 slices of bread, omelette, and spinach and mushroom. I know, oh Jesus Christ, this is like my go-to meal, and I will have that. Oh my god, I was gonna say I was having the bank, but that's like, maybe I might cut that one out. I might cut it out. I might not. I'll see how I feel. But yeah, have it in the thinking bank of your food optimization, and then there you go. I know that I don't even need to think. I can just have this meal. So if I'm planning out my meals and I'm like, I have no bloody idea what to have. Oh, I really like that omelette meal. Okay, done. Having that for the next couple of days. Sorted. So lean protein versus other protein. So these are going to be like your lean versions of protein. So take a screenshot of this. This will be really helpful. And these are going to be like your other protein. So what I mean by lean protein is that you're going to get a lot of protein for the calories on these. Compared to these, it's going to be more like fatty products. So just like, don't cut them out of your diet. Like, I still eat. I love the Linda McCartney range. I love salmon. I still have shop bought burgers. I still have like normal yogurt every now and then, but I'm just aware that it's not going to have as much protein, so I might limit these to 1-2 times per week, or even like one a day, rather than like making my whole diet filled with these. And then my favourite ones to do with meal ideas, I'm not going to read them all out, like, just screenshot it. These are dinner ideas, these are snack ideas, these are breakfast ideas, and these are lunch ideas. So screenshot them, enjoy them, you're welcome. And then maybe throughout the next couple of months, I will make like I'm not doing YouTube. I will do like Instagrams on them. So yeah, that is your webinar. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you've got any questions, do feel free to ask me.